As always, make a nice gentle start. If you've done this before and you're familiar with the postures and so on and so forth, you have a kind of aspiration to get into the postures and the movements, but still allow yourself time to move towards that. Just standing for a moment, standing comfortably, as close as possible to what you know about the Tai Chi stances and what feels right to you. Feet are hip width apart, toes pointing forwards. A little bit of your weight forwards. And just letting your hips drop back, a feeling just settling down. Before we start the actual movements, instead of doing this at the end, let's do this at the beginning of the class, just to take the chill off a little bit and to help us with this sense of bringing our attention into our body. So the pads of your fingers, just tapping lightly over your face. And then working up over your head and neck. Shoulder, and as you go down your body, when you're tapping somewhere like the shoulder, see if you can just relax that shoulder a little bit, that part of the body, get a sense of almost resonance in the muscles. Going down your arm, just feel the vibration in your arm. And then on the other side, might feel different this side. Now onto your back. Quite light on your back, but still see if you can feel that sense of vibration going around your hips. And your legs. Open up your body, up the front into your belly, light on your belly again. And then on the upper part of the chest. So, just trying to keep that gentle focus of awareness and turning from the center part of your body. So waist and hips. As your arms hang down, just follow the movement. And with this particular swinging exercise, as your arms come around and strike your body, there's land on your hips, and lower part of your back, buttocks, that kind of area. And see if you can still feel that little sort of vibrating qualities. It can feel a bit like if you hit a drum and you feel the vibration of the skin as you strike it. And this helps to bring your attention to the sort of tone that we're looking for in all the soft tissue of our bodies. We can take that analogy of the drum a little bit further, because the drum has a physical structure and it needs that physical structure to be working for it, to be capable of supporting it, to allow the vibration. And in the same way, we want to be aware of our posture, the physical structure of our body, so that parts of the body that may be under strain and stiffening up start to, again, release, soften. That sense of vibration, as I labeled it, maybe one way in which we can understand the notion of an energy in our body that comes from the movement and that helps to develop the movement in terms of its rhythm and the way it pervades the whole of our body eventually. In theory, if not in practice, you could strike, your arm could strike across your hip, and you'd feel that in the sole of your foot, you feel it in your shoulder, you feel it in your head, and so on and so forth. And maybe quite a tall order, but again, this is a kind of aspiration. So that one of the things that we do is we develop a sense of our whole body in movement. And this has an effect on our minds. This gathering together helps us to just quieten, to settle in our thoughts. And so we bring together these three elements of body, mind, and energy. That more focused awareness reflects back into both our movement and our posture. With greater awareness, we can bring about changes, and so on and so forth. So, although a very simple exercise, and although it has this very important physical aspect of warming the body up, warming the muscles up so we can move more easily, a very gentle aerobic quality that can have an effect on our breathing. There are other things going on beyond just the physical. This is a truism, I think, for all the movements that we do. Noticing the quality of movement in your arms, that sense of a slight pull, almost as though the muscles of your arms are like water-filled balloons, is something that we want to maintain all the way through the movements. With this exercise, we're not doing anything with the arms other than letting them follow the movement. So it comes more obviously. But now turning your hands palm forwards, just raise them up and have an intention to maintain some of that quality that I just mentioned. And intention is an important element here. Our bodies respond to our minds just as our minds respond to our bodies. It's a two-way process. And sometimes when we're trying to achieve something physically, just the idea that this is what we're trying to achieve actually stimulates the body into beginning to achieve it. So it's not always a case of, have I got the technique right? It's also about, have I got the kind of focus of attention and intention that can lead me into the correct move. And then the hands drop down. 1 foot forwards and begin to move forwards and backwards. One of the sort of outcomes of this process can be a sort of quietening of our attention, a step back from everything else that is happening, or perhaps that rather than thinking of stepping back, just allowing all those other things that go through our mind, thoughts, plans and ideas and so on and so forth, feelings, to just take a back seat for a while. And I wouldn't want to claim this as a sort of complete panacea, but we can get a little bit of respite from everything else that's going on. And we can learn over a period of time that we can access this quieter feeling, even in our daily activities. It's not the end of the story by any means, but it's an important starting point. One of the old Tai Chi writings urges us to seek the stillness within the movement. And then on the other side, you should realize that all of these qualities are elusive. You may get the odd glimpse of that stillness. You may get the odd sense, oh yeah, that feels really good. And a couple of moments later, it all seems to have gone away. This isn't just you. This is the common experience. But one of the things that I've learned my Tai Chi practice is that it's capable of return, that we can come back to this sense of stillness, that spaciousness, and just sort of touch base with it for a few moments and shake out. And that's important, that we don't somehow feel that we're failing when we lose those feelings. So once again, try and have your weight a little bit forward in your feet. I'll come closer so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm exaggerating a little bit. When I go forward, you notice that my body angles forwards. And rather than pulling my shoulders back, which is a very common response to this feeling of being slightly out of line, what I want to do is to just let my hips settle back and down, softening in knees and hips. So again, my pelvis levels off, and again, I get that sense of just quieting. Where the pull of gravity helping me to sort of come back to that sense of being rooted, of our center of gravity dropping, and our thoughts, our attention going with that. And letting your hips drop back a little bit more and pushing up. So with this simple movement, again, we can perhaps get a sense for that idea of a return. As we push up, we feel the pull of gravity seem to get stronger through our body, and eventually, rather than straining against it, we allow ourselves to sink down. So we'll come back, and pushing up again, and come back. But it's not just about settling. We begin to realize that the act of sinking down is the beginning of a process that will push us up. So that sense of stillness, that sense of coming into our center, again, letting those thoughts and feelings just take a back seat, is actually also the point from which we begin to move out again. It's like sinking down into water and then feeling the water pushing you up. And very gently, don't go down too far. Try not to stiffen up in your knees. It's a strong movement in our legs, but we want the muscles of our legs to take the load. And again, feeling that sense of rhythm developing, your body expanding and contracting. Maybe the same beginning of a sense of resonance. Remember when we were tapping the shoulder, but the muscles vibrating. It's more difficult, I think, to find that when we're moving slowly, but it's possible. Now, bringing your hands around as though you're cradling the ball, pushing up, letting the expansion in your upper body, push your elbows out, turn your hands over and settle down. Pushing up and settling down. This is called rooting down. So this rooting down is both the physical dropping of our center of gravity, which offers us greater stability, releases particularly the upper body from having to carry too much weight, enables it to open up a little bit more. And also, as I just said, this sense of the place that we come to just touch that sense of stillness. And again, as I just said, the sense of the beginning of the movement in a way. This is an important first exercise to do. Letting your breathing just come naturally and smoothly. If you've done this before and you've got an idea of a breathing pattern, then it might be appropriate for you to try and maintain that, but don't force it. One very common image that we use in Tai Chi is we imagine moving through water. And again, we can begin to see how an image in our minds, whether it's one that we've constructed or an image that we've received from television or billboard or picture in a magazine, can actually have a physical effect in our body. So we can make creative use of imagery. And when we use the image of moving through water, if it's appropriate, we begin to find that our bodies move as though they are really in water, with that sense of a releasing of tightness, a releasing of stiffness. Perhaps the difference is that in water, we have an external support with the density of the water. In Tai Chi, that support comes from within, in particular from my legs. Now, turning your hands out and changing, same thing in legs and hips. This is the wild goose. So again, there may be an image there, the smoothness of the movement of the flight of the bird, strength of that perhaps, that conveys some kind of quality. Don't feel you have to chase after the images. They may not be the right image for you. No image will work for everybody, and no image will work for you all the time. One more of these. Keeping that movement, sinking down and pushing up through your hips and your legs. This time, let your hands drop down. Push up, and again, your elbows going out first, drawing your fingers around a nice gentle circle, just parting the clouds. I think this is a nice image. We've had a few days here in Cambridge of low grey skies. You can feel almost as though the sky is pushing down on you. But when the sun come out, then you always get this sort of slightly more expansive, opening up feeling, a brighter feeling perhaps within our body. Maybe we can just get a little bit of a glimpse of that from this exercise. One more of these. And letting your hands drop down, feeling the weight of your arms as they fall by your sides, and then focusing your intention on one side, extending out, winding your arm around and pull down. This is dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Change sides, don't rush the change over, and same thing on this side. So we begin to recognize that we can choose where we want to focus our attention and our intention, where we want to focus the sense of movement through our bodies. Pull of gravity, of course, is constant. Movement upwards is constant. But with a more alert posture, a more alert attention, it's as though we have a number of different sort of routes. It's like we're at each time we're at a crossroads, and you just choose a particular route. A sense of just encouraging the energy in that particular direction. One more time. And give your legs a shake out. I think everybody finds their legs getting a little bit achy. The idea that we can choose where we want the movement, where we want the energy to focus, is one that can be developed at a very subtle level. I mean, with the last exercise, it was okay, one side and then the other, but we're learning to take some kind of ownership of where the main focus of the movement is. The movement is everywhere in your body. But it might be that we want to just try and get, if you've got a stiff shoulder, for instance, it might be that you want to try and just encourage that movement into that shoulder, so you can bring a gentle focus of attention to that area. You can imagine the movement, you can intend the movement to work there. Don't spend too long doing that. It can become very obsessive if you're not careful. Maybe just try it for a couple of rounds of a particular movement, and maybe come back to it later. But don't get stuck on it. The next two exercises don't involve the hips going up and down, but we do want to try and maintain this posture, allowing gravity to work through our body freely and allowing the response from our body to move up through our body freely. So there is this movement through our body, which is there all the time, of course, because gravity is always working on this. But we aim to allow it a freer movement. If we're standing stiff and tight, then it's like if you've got a drain pipe on the side of your house and it's blocked, water doesn't flow quite so easily. So whether you're actively sinking your hips down and pushing them up, or whether you're just letting them rest back, you're actually helping that movement through your body. So come back into that posture, bring your hands to your sides. This is pushing in 4 directions. First of all, the hands coming around in front slightly, pushing up just a little bit, and then returning. Coming right back to the center of the body, so you're more aware of what's happening in this central part of the body. And then lifting again, this time pushing out to the sides, and as you do that, a bit of a turn in your hips and your waist to redirect your arms. Turn back to the front. And then the other side, take your time. And back. And then pushing out to the sides. And back. Give yourself time to come back to this central position and then start the whole sequence over again. And particularly people who are familiar with this exercise, it's very easy to find ourselves shortcutting. I think, well, we know this, and so we can do this, and our mind starts to drift off, and we sort of get to here, and then we go to the other side. Make a particular point of refocusing your attention here, and then push out. So in some ways, if you're new to this, we're probably more focused than those of us who are so familiar with the movement that we can almost do them without thinking. Trying to keep a steady rhythm between the expansion and the contraction. Maybe just noticing if the movement focuses your attention for a moment on an area that feels a bit stiff or blocked. And a good time to practice that sense of releasing there, of encouraging the movement there, is in that return in movement. You could do it at any point, but it's often this drawing back into our center, into our root, that is the part of the movement that is most likely to be effective in getting that sense of releasing. sort of just removing blockage. Overall, a very smooth quality of movement, sometimes described as though all the soft tissue in your body were being very gently massaged. So again, use that image of moving through. Now, your hands drop down with the weight of your arms down, and once again, focusing on one side of your body, the expansion, pushing your arm out, so you can swing up to a point where it's in line with your nose and then straight down. When we extend out, as with this exercise and with all of them, try not to think of this as stretching. Nothing wrong with stretching, but in these exercises, we're going to a point where we feel that we could have moved a little bit further. This helps to maintain that sense of space and movement within our body. This time, if it's comfortable, again, you can turn. That helps to bring your arm across your body. And then changing sides. Noticing the difference between one side of our body and another, which is often the case of many of us. And then it's time, once again, turn. Letting your arms hang again, and once again, bringing your attention to the center part of the body. It's this part of the body that actually we want to get a sense of touching the ground. It's this part of the body, as we just discovered, that will give directions to our upper body, in particular our arms. And as we're about to discover, if you tilt your pelvis forwards and backwards, when we move in the center of the body, in particular the pelvis, we adjust what's happening in our shoulders and our back. So when we want to stand more upright, mostly this is what we're going to be doing in these exercises, rather than pulling or straining our shoulders or our neck, we simply allow our hips to drop back. I say simply, it's not that easy because it's quite strong in our legs. So with these next two exercises, please be very careful with your knees as well as your back. Push your hips back so that your head and shoulders go forward, but your center of gravity stays over your legs. Drop down just a little bit, and then let gravity pull your hips back, bringing your head up and push up. So not leaning forwards, but rather tilting in your upper body, weight still going straight down through your legs. Very carefully. I'm doing this quite big, so hopefully you can see what I'm doing, but just move as far as you're comfortable. This time, letting your arms follow as you push up here. The arms are pushed up a little bit, and as the hips go back and you sink down, they follow the shoulders over. This is called Rona boat in the middle of the neck. You may notice a little bit of an extension through your spine, as though as your hips go back and your head goes forwards, spine is very gently pulled out. And maybe feeling that extension extends out through your arms to your fingertips. And then this time, when you come to the upright position, change into the movement, polishing the table. Same idea, hands in front of you, turn, you push your hips back, do an extension through your body, swinging across and come back to the center just for a moment, and then turn the other way, push back. I'm going to turn around so you can see what my hips are doing. I turn, then I push my hips back, and that sends my hands forwards, swing my hips back, let them drop down, come to the upright position and back to the center, and then change the direction. Polishing the table. One more in each direction. And then come to standing. Trying to bring again a gentle focus of attention, first of all, to this area between pelvis and waist, center of your body, and then from there down into the ground. And then shake out. So we can see the significance of this center part of the body and its relationship to the ground in the physical aspects of the movements. When I turn, my arms go in one direction, so on and so forth. When I tilt, affects the alignment of our body. It's this part of the body that we want to feel is touching, sinking into the ground. Also, by returning our attention to those parts of the body, we begin to develop a pathway to almost a physical location where we can find again that sense of stillness, that sense of spaciousness just for a moment. Almost like it's a place, you know, some people will have a particular place where they like to go, where they feel calmer. Some people, you know, maybe at lunchtime in a workplace, if there's a park nearby, they'll go to a particular place because they feel comfortable there, and they can just for a few minutes just sit there quietly. And the more they travel that path, the more accessible it is. They become very familiar with that. And in the same way with Tai Chi, we become familiar with this movement of our attention into those quieter places. People use phrases like happy place and quiet place. And so with Tai Chi, we learn to carry those within our body. So we move from our center, if you like to think of that. We move from our center, we move from the ground. And this is also important for the physical build-up of the movement. Without the root, without the physical foundation, it's very difficult to get some kind of sense of a structure that once again allows for that sense of movement, a sense of space within the body. Because as we release tightness and stiffness, it's like loosening a pair of a set of clothing, or so taking up a stiff pair of shoes, we can move again. And one of the things that we're trying to cultivate in these arts is this sense of the inner movement, whether that be movement of things like breathing, digestion, all the metabolic processes that require movement, or whether it's that sense of the overall movement, the connection, the resonance within the body. Space is needed for movement, and so both in mind and body, we start to appreciate that there is this sense of space, that we're less pressured, and from this, that calmer feeling that we associate with the art can begin to develop. The change in our stance is one thing to feel all of that in a static position, and it's very good if we can, because we have a sense of what we're aiming for. But now we're going to introduce another posture. We did this a little bit earlier, but being a bit more precise about this. Turn your left foot out. This is an angle you can play about with. Step forwards with your right foot. And notice you can still see the background between my legs. If I stand like this, I start to feel as though I'm sort of balancing on a log, or yeah, on a tightrope. My body would naturally tighten up, but here it's more like I'm standing on a plank rather than a log. And again, our body will respond to that. The length of the step is about the same for those of you who are more experienced, and that sense of rooting down is developing. Maybe a little bit longer, not too short though. You don't want your feet there. You want your front heel in front of your rear toes. So you want a little bit of space there, because now what we're going to do is to begin to transfer our weight forwards and backwards. So it's challenging to feel that sense of being centered, being rooted, and everything that implies in terms of mind, in terms of body, in terms of energy, in what we might think of as a static posture, a fixed posture. Here, though, we're now even more challenged, because we want to try and move and maintain those qualities. And inevitably, in the process of moving our weight from one foot to another, little things happen. It's like, when you walk down the road, the pavement isn't always even, so on and so forth. This is an art of change, and how we navigate that change without losing these qualities that I've been talking about. And the key to this, the way into this, is to make sure that we're moving from the ground. This can come very difficult, because we tend to pay more attention, and we tend to move more from our upper body for one reason. But let me just show you why I think that's important. It's a simple example. If I get this pile of books and I put them on the ground in front of me, and I decide I want them out of the way, because obviously they're in my way, and I use my foot and I push on the top book, this happens. I get a bit of movement, but eventually the whole structure is going to collapse. It's like if you've got a stack of boxes and you want to move them along, you don't push on the top box. However, if I do this, if I push on the bottom, then this happens, and it moves more easily, and it maintains the structure while it moves. Just get them out of the way. So if we can be more aware of our feet, our legs, our weight, that contact with the ground, we're going a long way towards maintaining that structure that allows that sense of movement, and that sense of being at ease with our body, a sense of the whole body moving as one unit, much more effectively. Again, it's not the end of the story by any means, but it is an important part of it. When you go into your front foot, you're looking for about 60%. When you go into the back foot, you'll be up to 70%, but not more than that at the moment. And each time you land in one foot, you just have a moment to settle in. So there's 4 stages to this movement. 2 are obvious: moving the weight forwards, moving the weight backwards. 2 are less obvious, and they're quite short moments, but just that moment of settling. We move and we settle. We move, we settle. Ideally, of course, we wouldn't lose that sense of settledness and stillness. In practice, we do. So again, we just begin to recognize that there are little moments when we can come back to those qualities. I think of them as being like a comma in a sentence. They're not separate from the movement, but we just focus on them a little bit more at one point or another. Trying to keep our pelvis level to maintain our structure, and in particular the alignment of the upper part of our body. Now, go into your back foot, settle in, and as you do, raise the front toes. A little bit more of your weight begin to settle down in the front foot. You can turn the front foot out a bit here, go forwards, push the back knee forwards so that your heel comes up and you're a little bit more into the front foot. So gradually, we encourage more of our weight to flow down through each supporting leg. So in the back foot, it goes from 70 to 75 and then to 80 pounds. Front foot again, in slow increments. We learn that we're able to drop our weight and to find a sense of alignment, a sense of stability over one leg, not just over 2 legs. It's always going to be trickier, of course. So you may get the odd wobbles. That doesn't constitute a failure. But eventually, we're able to just bring the foot in without too much jerking around, and then step out, and then again bringing the foot in. Now, if it's the front foot, the heel goes down and toes go down. You push in just a little bit, almost like you're walking on thin ice, and you test the ice, and then you move the weight. The back foot, the same idea, but the ball of the foot goes down first. You plant the foot, just gently push into the ground. Feel that contact with the ground. This is not how we would walk down the road, but the things that we're practicing, the alignment of our body, contact with the ground, the significance of the weight transfer, are all important factors in our everyday movements. And then inhale. Now, try that with the other foot forwards. Turn the right foot out, step forward with the left foot. First of all, what we would call fixed step. Toes and heels not coming off the ground. As you get more experience with this, you can start to think about how your upper body is aligned forwards and backwards rather than just up and down. Ideally, feeling that you're able to comfortably face the front the whole time. You may find a little bit of movement in your hips, and for the moment, don't try and correct that. If you try too quickly to sort of bring the body around, you risk twisting your back, twisting your knees. Better to have a slight angle there. Again, you can use that image moving through water. That may help to give you a sense of a change in sensation between front and back. When you go forwards, you feel the pressure of the water against your front. And then same thing in the back as you go back. And just feeling that gentle, very subtle change in the quality of your body. You begin to feel almost as though water itself is flowing forwards and backwards in and of course downwards. Beginning to raise your toes, and then your heel. Remembering that moment of just settling in. And stepping in. Try not to think of this as an exercise in balancing. You can reframe that idea and think what we want to do is to root down, is to align our body, root down to let the center of gravity drop. And through that, what we start to develop is a sense of stillness, stability. When we're stable, we don't need to concern ourselves with balancing. So in Tai Chi, the idea of balance is a little bit different to how we might find it in other forms of exercise. And then take a few steps either forwards or backwards, depending on where you have the space, remembering to plant the foot. And then going back. Again, remember, you can take that moment here, settling in. You can also do it here. There's no hurry. This is not a race. And every time you do that, you're reinforcing your ability to bring your attention back into your body, back into that point of stillness. So we're going to use those movements to generate the movement, to generate the energy to move in the upper part of the body. It comes from that initial sinking down, whether or not the knees are bending more. Remember, it's not as long as the knees are soft, we're not inhibiting that movement. That's what we're looking for. And that begins that process of a movement upwards. The intention is to allow the upper body, and in particular our arms, to give a shape, to give an expression to the movement that is already there, rather than trying to create everything at once in our arms and our hands. So we move from the ground, we move from that point of stillness. Have your right foot forwards again. Start with your weight back, hold your hands over your belly, sink into the back foot and feel yourself being pushed forwards. Feel that movement pushing your elbows out, separating your fingers, and just open your chest and then dropping back, reversing that whole movement, feeling your back expanding. This is pigeon spreads its wings. You may want to bring in again that image of moving through water, if that's useful to you. That can help with keeping the order of the movement. Movement comes from our feet, so our legs, to the center of our body, and then into the upper part of our body. Don't overextend your arms. Remember, at the end of the movement, you still want to feel that there is space for that movement through the body. One more time. Side, go back. This time I let my hands drop down again, and aware of the weight of my arms, I go forwards, leaving my hands behind for a moment. Then as I settle in the front foot, I swing through. and then going back. Swing through, not trying to move arms any further than the momentum of the movement pushes them to. But aware of changes and movements and patterns of expansion and contraction through the upper part of the body. And again, as we get more familiar with those, more familiar with this idea of using our intention to focus and to guide the movement, then we can begin to just encourage those patterns to work better, to work more fully, and to extend our range of movement to our arms in that way. Both of this is called fisherman cast a net, and both this movement and the previous one, our weight is moving forwards and backwards. We're facing forwards, more or less, as I said earlier, and the arms are following forwards and backwards. But this time, as you start to go back, turn a little bit to your left. And now, by actively turning, we're drawing our arms across our body. There's a little bit of a curve there. Our arms swing down, I think, so it's tracing that gentle curve. And again, we just encourage that movement to build through expanding in the left side of our body, pushing our arms up, going forwards, turning, letting the arms drop down, swing across the hips, turn out a little bit through the expansion on the right side of your body, very similar to dragon plucks the stars from the sky. And the combination expressed in our arms and our fingers with this circling movement, like a sideways figure of 8, or some people like to think of this as being like the infinity sign. It's almost like the shape is there in front of you, and you're able to just let your body flow into that shape. Remember to keep a sense of what's happening in your feet, your legs with your weight moving, aware of the turning in your center, and the method of transmission, the patterns of movement between your hips, your shoulders, and your arms and your hands. And now, same thing on the other side. Left foot forwards again, weight in your back, starting with pigeon spreads. Always giving yourself time, regardless of where you are in the movement, but particularly when you land in one foot, always giving yourself time to just settle. Sometimes that can feel like it breaks the movement, but over a period of time, you realize that it doesn't, that the stillness and the movement really do work together. Pigeon spreads its wings. This time, change into fisherman cast a net. And then turning into the figure of 8 movement. Moving with that image of moving through the water. Then we're going to combine this with the stepping movement. So again, whichever direction is most comfortable. I'm going forward, you see, I'll turn the front foot out. As my arms are pushed up, my foot comes in, I plant the foot, and then I go forwards. And who knows, maybe if I'm stable enough, I can even begin to raise the leg. If you try that and you find that you're wobbling all over the place, just leave the toes down. And then going back. This time, bringing your feet parallel, and your hands drop down, your hips drop. And our final exercise, embrace the tiger, return to the mountain. Again, this idea of a return. And the image of the mountain for me is one that encapsulates many of these qualities of Tai Chi. But for you, it might be different, but it's worth focusing on that process of a return, something which you may want to come back to at times during the day. With gravity on your hips and your shoulders and your elbows. Again, as you settle, not in a hurry to push out, let your arms drop down. Wait until you feel that push up through your legs. Once again, that comma in the sentence that can just help to break the sense of rushing in both mind and body. It's time, hips drop back, hands drop down, just standing again, aware of the weight of your arms and your shoulders, weight of your upper body on your hips, weight of your whole body. And just give you a nice little shit. Lovely. Thank you, everybody, for joining in and watching. Please do feel free, as always, to email me with any questions you may have about this. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you again.